Hello. Dan, you want a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay. Thank you for joining Journey to a Borderless Data Center, the shortest way to the cloud. This has been a webinar we've been working on for quite some time from a content partners understanding our story perspective. And in the next slide, talk about a little bit about what Non-Micro is, right? So we were founded in 1993. We have a number of accredited partnerships, play in a number of markets, including SLED, our OEM business with Non-Micro players. We offer a diverse set of services, including lifecycle services, PCs, servers and storage, lifecycle management software via DICE, and OEM digital signage hardware. We carry a number of public sector contracts, and we'll, just so people know that in the leave behind. And then if we advance, I'm Bernard Charter, Chief Technology Officer at Non-Micro. I have a background in IT infrastructure, security, networking, all kinds of terrible things. And I'm glad to be joined by our subject matter expert, Dan, who's a enterprise solutions architect at Non-Micro. He brings a significant amount of experience building enterprise solutions with our customers in both a relatively vendor agnostic way, choosing the right solution for the customer, but and has a deep understanding of traditional data center as well as what our new data center looks like. So just to step through the agenda here, we're going to talk about data center modernization, what this foundation looks like, how you start this journey, how you traverse through it, what some of the options are. And we're really answering, the why, what, where, how of what a hyper-converged infrastructure gives you, as well, just as a takeaway, as well as, what that journey looks like. If we look at the landscape, 94% of enterprise customers use a cloud service. You are more likely than not have cloud as part of your IT infrastructure. That breakdown, there's obviously a lot of still on-premise work that's happening. A lot of organizations are moving towards hybrid, but I think what we want you to understand is cloud's here, and managing that landscape between your internal resources and your external resources has some friction, and there are solutions to that, especially with hyper-converged infrastructure. So looking at the key features, we're looking at sort of global availability, a number of large partners, flexible scalability, the ability to change CapEx to expense dollars, in some cases expense dollars to capital expense, and sort of meet your risk appetite for spend, as well as managed services that can eliminate some of the scaling with people, additional training, or things that keep you away from achieving your goals. So what is this? We're really talking about a few key products here, sort of a cloud platform. So Azure Stack, HCI, Stack Edge, Stack Hub is the Microsoft offering. AWS Outposts would be the Amazon offering here. And then there's also VMware Virtual Cloud Foundation, which is a significantly more cloud agnostic, with some trade-offs, but a cloud agnostic way of approaching this with infrastructure in your data center and in the cloud. And as far as hardware, we're looking at consolidated compute, storage, and network. So instead of having separate views, separate management of all of these things, we have a single pane of glass that we're looking at this consolidated. And it gets very interesting where sort of traditional storage technologies maybe run over IP, and that convergence is in a number of places throughout these hardware platforms.
And to expand on the cloud platform, thank you, Bernard. Thank you. We were considering other platforms as well, right? There was the rack-based hybrid cloud solution, for example. NetApp has their cloud on tap, and then Google Anthos is up and coming rather fast, but it's a newer player in the market space. And probably from a naming standpoint, my favorite is Red Hat Nuba, which is a hybrid platform from Red Hat. And while those are great platforms to standardize on, the OEM partners that we work with, that we saw in an earlier slide that Bernard pointed out, they already have solutions that are certified by Azure and VMware, right? So whereas AWS Outpost, that is Google provided equipment. So in that regard, we've kind of narrowed the list down to a top 3, if you will, for where we're guiding customers at this point in time until the others are up and coming. So what does that HCI, the Hyper-Converged Infrastructure Stack, look like when you're trying to converge your data center on-premise and your cloud presence? And Azure Stack has a number of different offerings for that. For edge devices, you know, kind of a 1U platform that everybody's used to in that format. And there's some applications around that, whether you're looking at the edge, IoT, etc., that would be the solution. Now, what we're bundling and solutioning here at Now Micro are the Azure Stack HCI and Azure Stack Hub, which gives you that cloud presence in your data center. So instead of having disparate application solutions, you're looking at being able to take that cloud presence and put it on this equipment, certified equipment by Azure, by VMware, and run your application stack there and have a seamless experience. Again, AWS Outpost, this is kind of the way they build out their infrastructure, and that is to order, install, launch, and build from your own data center, but using equipment provided by Amazon. So that's the way they control their stack and how they know that everything is certified on their platform they're providing. And it comes in a couple different factors, whether it be by the rack or by the device. And then from the VMware standpoint, they're taking a little different perspective. Instead of bringing the cloud experience down to the data center, they're going the other way. Take your already virtualized data center and make that a cloud experience. So the advantage of that is that you're already certified on VMware, you know VMware, your data center is already set up with VMware. So to transition that to the cloud through VMware Cloud Foundation is just a couple steps. I'll cover that in a second here. But you're able then to use any cloud platform, whether it be Rackspace, whether it be AWS or Azure for Microsoft, etc. You have the flexibility right out of the gate of being able to go to any cloud. However, the downside of that is that you're paying VMware for your virtualization in your data center, and you're paying them for the cloud presence as well, on top of the virtualization that the cloud is charging for you. So a little extra expense there, but, and this is where we can kind of guide the process, we can do an analysis that shows whether or not that would be profitable for your organization, because there are cost savings to be had in the administration when you already have certified administrators and a platform that's already functioning in your data center. So this is what the solution stack looks like from Microsoft. Azure Stack Hub. You see on the left there is what would be running in your data center. On the right is what would be running in the cloud. And you can see that the same tools, the same management interface, and the rest of the infrastructure stack looks identical until you get to the bottom layer, and that's just the equipment that's being run in your data center versus what's being run in the cloud. So from the top level, it's the same experience. And this would be the similar stack from AWS. Again, they're trying to provide that same experience in the data center as in the cloud. So your load balancing, your storage, and all the services that run underneath are the same on both sides, whether it be in your data center or in AWS. And this is the stack from VMware. Presently, you have your existing vSphere infrastructure, you have your independent SAN or NAS infrastructure for your shared storage. And by simply activating the vSAN license within vSphere, you are now unlocking the power of Cloud Foundation to set up that HCI infrastructure within your data center and being then able to migrate that to the cloud as well. So what are some of the advantages? You have one platform with the same tenant, right? And Bernard, I think we'll turn this slide over to you to explain a little bit more about why you would be wanting to change to a hyper-converged infrastructure in a hybrid cloud format.
So there we go. Sorry, having a little bit of feedback here, so I unmute myself. So we look at one of the things I definitely want to double click on, which is the unified control plane. So if we have people managing your internal data center and in the cloud, having unified control plane means that you're training in one single pane of glass to manage both those pieces of infrastructure. That's important as we go through this transformation. We want to make sure that the ability to train, retain, and also have transferable skills for people, it's very important to stick the landing on this. For developers, being able to deploy identically in the cloud and local is another advantage. You no longer have to understand how your internal data center is set up to host internal-facing apps. You deploy that internal-facing app just as you would on the cloud, and it even can share resources between it. For example, having the database in the cloud and maybe an app tier or a storage tier internally for large volume data sets like photos or videos or things like that. There's some significant advantages there. We also get the privilege of using the cloud security internally. So a lot of organizations struggle with security. It's become more and more important as we digitize more and more of our businesses. How do I reduce these attack vectors? How do I have a single pane of glass, again, to look at that security, implement two-factor authentication internally and externally? I'm able to do that by overlaying that cloud control plane from a security perspective over everything. And then we also get the inherent data resiliency, right? Since we're running applications identically internally and externally, in a disaster recovery or continuity scenario, I can move that or restore from backup in either environment, depending on where the outage is, right? So I have that flexibility with the same stuff to do that. And, slicing that a different way, we can seamlessly extend apps and data to the cloud, right? So I can have that same data or the same application pieces run internally and externally. I can scale in the cloud if I need to, so I don't have enough internal muscle and I have a peak period coming. I can spin that up in the cloud and load balance between them. I can give my developers a better, more consistent experience so they can focus on writing the apps that you need rather than fighting their tools in an environment. And then I can, again, overlay that security layer so that I know that my data is protected and being treated exactly how I want it to in either environment. If we go, we talk about business critical migration and modernization. Again, sort of talking about these same things in a slightly different way. We have the high availability and disaster recovery by having that single environment, that single pane of glass to manage. We have the ability to do multi-cloud operations, especially in the VMware version of this. We have those finer grained security controls and attestation that we can actually demonstrate to auditors and insurance people as we go through and show compliance. We have that flexibility, and we're also able to adjust our costs. Being able to, in a current day modern data center, you may have a hard time contextualizing and measuring how much an app costs. There's people time, there's data center costs as far as power, equipment, so on and so forth, developer time. When we move to a hyper-converged infrastructure, we have better tools because we are using the cloud half of that to actually measure our costs. And we're also able to get finer grain information around storage, network, and CPU usage of applications. I'm not going to go through, read the entire slide, but one of the things I definitely want to hit on is the AI and model training. A lot of applications of AI and model training require very sophisticated, expensive hardware. One of the advantages of having a hyper-converged cloud infrastructure is that you can not have to buy that equipment, but then rent it, per se in the cloud, do your modeling, do whatever you need to do, and use that over time instead of having to purchase that very expensive hardware. We also see a number of verticals that are moving. Healthcare, electronic health records is a big one. E-commerce platforms in the retail side, navigation, financial management. These are all industry-specific applications that lend themselves to this very naturally because they have these same requirements of security attestation, business continuity, recoverability, that you get by having a hyper-converged infrastructure.
Great. And then where does hyper-converged infrastructure fit in your organization? We have the tools and the reports to show you exactly where your organization fits into that consolidation scale is what we're calling it. So whether we're looking at going NVMe over fiber channel, whether it's scale up servers with DAS, a converged infrastructure, a hyper-converged infrastructure, or the full Azure Stack HCI, we have the tools and deterministic utilities to be able to provide you some guidance in that regard. Live Optics being just one of them off the top of my head that can guide you through the process and make informed decisions as to whether or not to jump onto the hybrid cloud bandwagon. So one of the processes we go through is determining where your organization is at. For example, standard format is when there's a migration event, right? So when you're looking at lift and shift, reinstalls, having to upgrade because of versioning, what have you, that's a good trigger point to look at hybrid cloud solution. Another one is modernization. There's a particular business metric tool that's driving this, whether it be big data, machine learning, IoT, et cetera, particular applications that would drive the need for modernization. You saw on the lowest tenant there, NVMe over fiber channel, that significantly boosts the storage sub-level, right, within the organization to make faster response time. Sometimes taking off of that, you can achieve more of a cloud presence having the correct HCI infrastructure. Or sometimes it's just compliance-based, right? GDPR and a number of other compliance-based vectors will force an organization to go to a cloud to be able to keep data in a particular location, right? Because if you just generally go to a cloud presence, there's no guarantee as to where the data is necessarily. So you can define more accurately or more in a fine granular form where the data is actually residing. So this is the methodology chart that we use here. Your traditional design on the left, we take and evaluate your traditional infrastructure, your existing infrastructure, and then look at whether a converged hyper-converged or a full Azure Stack style HCI solution would be the proper jumping point to get into the borderless data center. So on the bottom there, you can see that those earlier tenants fit right in, whether it's migration, modernization, or complete control of management operations. That is the flow chart that we use to bring it all together. And then to drill down on that further, we have a framework set up to take you through and guide an organization through the process, right? And the first thing is defining the strategy, right? What are the SLAs, service level agreements that the organization is asking from the IT department? What are the recoverability? Are there any particular ransomware or other threats that would drive this type of infrastructure to advance the organization? So we go through a plan, a readiness plan, and the adoption plan of how exactly this will look when it's complete. And then report back whether we're hitting the governance and management goals that were originally set out. So as Bernard pointed out at the top, we work with a lot of different vendors, specifically who is making these hyper-converged hybrid cloud infrastructure solution stack. And HPE and Dell are the leading two of our vendors that are making the Azure Stack HCI foundation, so that all this is coming in pre-configured form. We have to size the organization to the right solution stack, and then be able to appropriately manage the installation and the migration to that. On the other side of the coin is VMware VCF. Hitachi and Lenovo are leading OEMs making that solution stack. And then all four of the top vendors there, HPE, Dell, Hitachi, and Quantum, are also offering their own private cloud platforms. So if you didn't necessarily favor an Azure Stack or AWS or VMware Cloud, you could go to their individual stacks, and we could guide you through that process as to whether that makes sense financially and whether it's robust enough for your data center. So these are some of the solutions I pulled out of the line card, what they look like. A lot of them are obviously a full rack form where you have your networking, storage, and compute all in a rack. Quantum there you can see is going for more of the appliance based, but we have a full line card of solutions there, and have the compatibility guides and also the guidance to give you to make those appropriate decisions for your data center. So call to action here is to get started and give me a call. I'm the solutions architect for Now Micro. I'm happy to guide you through the process. And then Bernard is always on standby to make high-level management presentations and be able to sell a hybrid cloud solution to the executives in your organization. So want to thank you for participating and look forward to working with you on your project in the near future. Caitlin, are there any questions that have popped up online?
I don't see anything now, but we'll give about 30 seconds since there's a bit of a delay.
While we're waiting, I'll let you know that for all the participants, I put hot links on all these slides. So we'll be sending out a PDF version of this deck, so there's some reference to go against, and there's a lot of good information there from our providers. All right, with that, we're at the top of the hour. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me separately. My contact information is in that slide. And again, I'll thank you for joining. Have a great rest of the week.